Alex Jones's The Great Reset. Overview. When people have opposing views, the best solution is to come up with a compromise. Not only do they learn to cooperate, but it almost always leads to better results. The problem today is that compromise is not happening. In The Great Reset, 2022, well-known conspiracy theorist Alex Jones explains the theory of the Great Reset, which he describes as the despicable plan of the globalists to enslave humanity. To support his ideas, he analyzes the writings of Klaus Schwab, the founder and chairman of the World Economic Forum. Jones believes people can fight back, and it all starts with bringing the globalists' plot into the light. The plan. There has always been a battle between the forces of freedom and tyranny. Who wins this fight comes down to individuals deciding which we want more, freedom to run our own lives or governmental control. The most well-known advocate for the Great Reset is Klaus Schwab, who is the founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum. However, he is no different from all the other self-centered world leaders who have no idea what is actually going on in their countries. In his 2016 book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution, he explains some of the major trends that are shaping our society and promises a prosperous and human-centered future for everyone. He is like a magician, distracting you from his tricks and deceiving you. But once you know what he is really doing, it is impossible to retain respect for him. He is actually trying to manipulate you into accepting the plans of the richest world leaders to make themselves even richer. They do not care about people's lives, they want to have even more control over them. Schwab introduces the idea of human transformation to keep up with changing industries. But the change he wants to inflict on people is designed to make sure that he stays an incumbent. The rich want to keep their front row seats. His book is full of manipulation and blatant lies, all to ensure that the people change in order to let the rich prosper. Schwab and the Forum are planning a huge assault on our freedoms, and it is all clear in his book. It is important to take note and not let them take control over us. Control. Schwab had expected Hillary Clinton to win the presidency, but Donald Trump won instead, which is why not a lot of people paid attention to his 2016 book. He thus released almost the same one in 2018, titled Shaping the Future of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. The foreword was written by Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, and the author of yet another book promising a better future for everyone. He, of course, praises Schwab. Business leaders are kind of like overachiever high school students who want to prove to their teachers that they understand the education system better than them. Both Nadella and Schwab praise the achievements of big tech because the average reader does not understand all that technology and will be intimidated. Once intimidated, a person is easier to control. In his preface, Nadella wants you to trust him, a man you do not know or understand, with handling the technological changes needed to build a better world. Both men promise enormous benefits to trusting them, all while downplaying the risks. Whenever these men use positivity-wrapped words such as public-private partnership, the reality behind those words is fascism. Mussolini's Italy and Hitler's Germany were also public-private partnerships. All these men want to do is disarm the union of workers and people in order to attack them when they ask for better work and living conditions. Schwab is aware that most people do not trust the rich. He warns of problems that may arise and worsen the current inequalities people face, yet he is part of the richest 1% who are the sole reason for these inequalities in the first place. It seems as though he is playing detective for a crime he has committed. In reality, Schwab is not inviting the reader to help him create a better world for everyone. He is simply inviting you to trust him to build your prison cell. These people are not part of the real world, they only want to control it from their ivory towers. In the conclusion of his second book, Schwab explains how big corporations will act as de facto governments through their terms of service. This means that you will not only have the government to worry about, but also all the big tech corporations who own the services you are forced to use. Schwab also promises that the new standards are going to be developed by experts, who he explains are the stakeholders. Not even any filmmaker or writer has captured the dystopian quality of the future Schwab is explaining. Who is responsible? A technocracy would be a society run by engineers and scientists, but would not allow democracy or individual rights. This would be similar to what the Nazis, fascists, and communists did, but they did not allow the growth of a scientific leadership who would oversee society. As the United States went through the Great Depression that started in 1929, an opportunity arose for the technocrats. Everyone was angry at the capitalists, and technocracy would save them all. However, American democracy did not want to enter a technocracy, as no one was willing to give up private property. Technocracy also seemed too similar to Nazism, while also promising too many free things. Patrick Wood, an economist, author, and lecturer, has been warning about the dangers of a technocracy for decades. China is the poster child for technocracy. It used to be like North Korea with no economic system or industry, and its ascendance was dramatic. China perfected all kinds of things, such as surveillance and artificial intelligence, and used technology to keep people in line. If people do not comply, they just shoot them. Technocracy was the doing of the Trilateral Commission, whose goal was to create a new international economic order. It was founded in 1973 and was the beginning of modern globalization. The founders were David Rockefeller, who was the world's oldest billionaire until his death in 2017, and Zbigniew Brzezinski, who went on to be President Jimmy Carter's national security advisor. Brzezinski was the one who introduced technocracy to the Chinese, and he remained a friend of the communists until his death, also in 2017. The World Economic Forum is not that different from the Trilateral Commission, it just has a broader membership. Both are oblivious to how unpopular their ideas are among people. These globalists believe that people need to be controlled in order to function properly. The technology they want to develop is one that will make society easier to control. They want to create a capitalist system while denying any sort of freedom. COVID-19. Globalists act a lot like used car salesmen who will not let you off their property before you make a purchase. Ever since World War I, they have been preaching the necessity of globalism, and they have now shifted their focus to the pandemic. One way or another, COVID-19 was a planned attack by the globalists themselves. What proves this is that in October 2019, the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security held Event 201, in partnership with the World Economic Forum and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. This was a high-level pandemic exercise, which went over the necessary response to diminish a pandemic's consequences. COVID could have been deliberately caused or accidental, such as a bat virus escaping from the Wuhan lab, but either way, the globalists used it to their advantage, then denied their involvement. Dr. Anthony Fauci, the lead U.S. public health official on COVID-19, ignored the science behind the origin of the virus. Meanwhile, he was preaching to follow science everywhere. He did not believe that anyone other than him was fit to make any decision about the pandemic. This represents technocracy perfectly. The pandemic was engineered to train people to accept an authoritarian government, followed by a forced vaccine that would kill a lot of people. On July 9, 2020, a couple months after the lockdown started, Schwab published his new book, COVID-19: The Great Reset. This was a desperate way to rebrand his globalist ideas. Schwab started his book by explaining how the pandemic changed everything forever. However, aside from some people still wearing masks and worsening inflation, we can see that everything is still the same. The problems we are facing now are man-made, not consequences of the pandemic. Again, Schwab is advertising trusting the government and technology to solve all our problems. Yuval Noah Harari. Israeli academic Yuval Noah Harari is Schwab's top advisor. His books, such as Sapiens, have sold millions of copies, and globalists seem to enjoy them. Harari also tries to convince you that the past is flawed and that the future he is promising you is perfect. He blatantly states that if people do not cooperate, they are bound for failure and misery. He believes that the success of a political system is only dependent on the use of force, not persuasion. He also claims that the obliteration of native cultures was a positive thing. Harari believes that bioengineered devices and artificial intelligence will not just be used in weapons and vehicles, but also in humans. He simply does not think that humans can be trusted with freedom. He also believes that happiness is objective, and that a happiness pill could make all misery disappear, as it is simply biochemistry. Both Schwab and Harari promote the idea of bioengineering, which could cause the impairment of autonomy in all of us. Both believe that non-biological life, such as robots, is the solution for the world's problems. They want to replace humans with cyborgs. Because Harari does not believe in God, he tries to fill the God-shaped hole in his heart with technology. He envisions new religions which will be born from labs and technology, not history. However, this does not mean that humans will not be valuable anymore. There will be certain individuals who will be selected to become upgraded superhumans. These beliefs are highlighted in his first two books, Sapiens and Homo Deus. However, in his third book, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century, he starts sounding more rational. He seems to have developed a conscience. He states multiple times the dangers of the future of technology. He also acknowledges the effect media has on humans and their perception of themselves. It is still unclear if Harari should be seen as an evil partner of the globalists or if he is shifting his beliefs, but signs of humanity are emerging from him. Digital Gulag. After reviewing the writings of the globalists, we must look at how these plans are being put into action. This cannot be done by simply finding an email of globalists giving orders to other world leaders. It can only be done by understanding their philosophy and paying attention to its recent applications in the real world. There are many examples of this. When some Canadian truckers started protesting against mask and vaccine mandates when crossing borders, Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister, shut down all their efforts to protest. He froze their funds and claimed that their protests were illegal, which made their movement lose momentum. World leaders are perfectly capable of turning off the digital lives of people they want to keep under their control. This is also happening in Russia, with Apple Pay and Google Pay shutting off the finances of a big number of random citizens. This caused massive waiting lines in Moscow's metro stations, as people were not able to find enough cash to pay for their rides. In China, there are plans to roll out a digital currency, and if it becomes the new standard, immobilizing people would be a click away. If you get discredited in China, you will not be able to get a job, buy anything, or have children. This is because the government keeps track of everyone's movements. What is worrying is that Trudeau has stated that he respects the Chinese government. A lot of different countries are heading China's way, trying to adopt digital currencies and vaccine passports. This is the start of the digital identity. You will not be forced to apply for one, but if you don't, you are welcome to go live in a hut by yourself and not be part of society. The pandemic has been the perfect Trojan horse to implement this digital identity, with the Gulag disguising itself under vaccine passports. Energy. Everybody wants to save the planet. However, there should be limits to what we are willing to do. The current energy crisis in California is due to the government's plan to switch to renewable energy without a backup plan. This caused current energy sources to shut down, and the renewable sources are not ready or reliable yet. The Great Reset of energy that the globalists are planning will only lead to blackouts and increased cost of living for everyone. This will hit the poor the hardest. Green energy is 6 times more costly than the usual energy sources. Historic levels of inflation will be recorded if this plan gets executed. There are also plans to install kill switches in newer car models, which will allow any government official, such as cops, to shut down your vehicle in a matter of seconds. To add to the lunacy, NASA scientists have recently been researching the consequences of nuclear bombings, such as Hiroshima. The conclusion was that nuclear explosions could actually be climate cooling. So, in case of a climate emergency, globalists always have nukes to resort to. They will then simply point the finger at climate change. Climate change lockdowns were first introduced by the Chinese Communist Party. This idea was then adopted by the World Health Organization. Moreover, in the UK, the government is introducing the idea of CO2 ration cards, which could track the CO2 levels of people from the type of car they drive and their travels. Climate experts have proposed a CO2 budget for everyone. Joe Biden and King Charles are also dramatizing the idea of the climate change crisis, claiming that it is the existential threat of our time. The conclusion that we must draw is that the globalists are going to start relying on carbon footprints and vaccine passports to control the population. Food. The media is starting to warn us of food shortages and rations, blaming Russian President Vladimir Putin for this global food crisis. Countries are starting to limit the export of their food supplies, such as Moldova banning exports of grain and sugar in March 2022. Hungary then followed and banned the export of grain. This means that countries who are net importers will simply not be able to meet basic food needs. Globalists will blame climate change, urging us to stop eating meat, while they ride their private jets to discuss how to save all of us. Moreover, in 2022, dozens of food facilities have caught fire in the United States. This was due to a string of plane crashes and explosions. Investigators are not doing a good job at finding the cause of all of this. These countless accidents are not just coincidence. American globalists are trying to destabilize the food industry in order to further control the population. They are seizing all farmland, such as Bill Gates buying more and more farmland, and the plan is for big money to have complete control over the food industry. They are also pushing for the meatless diet and funding companies developing vegan options for everything. They even back the idea of eating bugs as an alternative source of protein. Trying to find the right narrative. Schwab and his globalist friends are constantly trying to find the most appealing narrative that will motivate the biggest part of the population to blindly follow their schemes. Schwab started by pitching the Fourth Industrial Revolution, which did not end up being that popular. He then followed it with a more intricate replica, which also failed. Next came COVID-19, the Great Reset, which also did not catch on, as people found it insensitive to talk about a world-changing opportunity when so many lives are being ruined because of the pandemic. He then published Stakeholder Capitalism in 2021, which did nothing to tackle the failures of the government during the pandemic. The globalists seem desperate for the right narrative. One of their attempts at gaining the public's sympathy was a literal child. Greta Thunberg was invited to the World Economic Forum in 2019 in Davos, Switzerland, when she was just 16 years old. She criticized the globalists' efforts to tackle climate change, which was odd, since Schwab was the one who invited her. However, her speech fit right into his plans. It created urgency in people around climate change. Thunberg also wants to tear things down. What is clear is that the globalists will never come up with a convincing narrative, because they do not believe in humanity. Humans follow stories, and the globalists cannot tell one for the life of them. More crazy things the globalists say. The globalists believe that democracy is not a good way to run nations. They want a dictatorship of scientists, engineers, and managers. They claim these people are starting to infiltrate governments. They have spoken about mind control using sound waves and even pills containing microchips. Globalists continue to praise lockdowns, claiming that they lead to the Earth's quietest period and that they contribute to making the world a better place. They said that they want to make COVID-19 lockdowns permanent, enforcing masks and homeschooling. They want to make you afraid of an invisible threat. Globalists also want to get rid of freedom of speech, disguising that as a recalibration of speech. However, free speech is binary. You either have it or you do not. They promise a prosperous future, admitting that people will own nothing but still be happy. These claims are all real and describe perfectly the future that globalists have in mind for us. Fighting them is up to us. We need to bring their plans and lies into the light. The globalists fear the public and they fear our power. We need to choose our own path, not follow the one they want to build for us. About the author. Alex Jones is a far-right conspiracy theorist. He hosts The Alex Jones Show on the radio and the InfoWars, NewsWars, and Prison Planet websites. He believes that the U.S. government hides and falsifies information. He supports gun rights and white nationalism. He claims that globalists want to chemically create more gay people to encourage the breakdown of family. He also believes that global warming is a scam and vaccines are the only cause for autism. In 2022, he declared personal bankruptcy after being ordered to pay over $1.4 billion in damages for spreading defamatory falsehoods about the Sandy Hook school shooting. We hope you enjoyed summary of Alex Jones's The Great Reset. Purchase the book to learn more.